Guys, let me know if we're live here. It looks like I might be a little bit early. Probably take 20 seconds or so to start showing up. I'm seeing it come up on this little YouTube panel I've got up over here. I do have a concern with this new camera. I am noticing sometimes OBS will kind of freeze up, so I'll kind of have to keep my eye in both places to make sure we're still going. Otherwise, hopefully everything goes well. Hello, License to Drive. That's a good tip. What you saw there is a really good way of drawing my attention to any questions you might have. He used the @ symbol and started typing my name. I think if you just type NIC, you should see a pop-up come to where you can select a name of anyone who's involved in the chat, and then that will definitely catch my attention if you have a question for me specifically. I did see before we got started where it was asked why so late. I did talk about that a little bit in another video. It's just kind of the time that I have with 3 kids and a family, the wife and everything, that I figured sharing bandwidth with all of them when they're doing all their normal activities would be a bad thing. And most of the time we're not home before, say, 8 o'clock. I get home from work as quick as I can, and then we eat, run to wherever we need to be by 6 o'clock. Usually there's another thing at 6:30. Sometimes there's a thing at 7 as well. And then we circle back to the house. So then everybody gets to bed, and this is kind of the time that I have to do this sort of stuff. I think I'm jiggling the camera there. I need to keep my elbows off the table. How long, Lisa? I really don't know. I don't have a plan. This is only the second time I've done any sort of stream. So, as long as we're interested. I think I just got a super chat, but I can't quite tell who it's from. And it's in a denomination I'm not familiar with. HRK. Thank you. I sure appreciate it. Is there anything you wanted to ask or say on the channel here? Let me scroll down here a little bit. Oh, Philip. Or Philippe. Sorry. Thank you very much, Philippe. Oh, we've got Finland joining us. I kind of thought that we'd get a lot of people either West Coast US or maybe Europe or other places where it's not such a terrible time. I get it. It's late. I'm kind of a night owl. Have been since, well, ever since I stopped my newspaper route when I was about 12. I had a newspaper route up to 12 or 13, and then I graduated on to mowing lawns and things like that. RC Racing's here saying hello. Red Dog is at work, but he's dropping by. Thank you very much. Is it Philippe or Philip? Rodelic? 5:30 a.m. in Croatia. Rogue Factor says it's the perfect time for the rest of us full-time dads. I wouldn't mind giving up my day job and just being a full-time dad. I enjoy being around the kids quite a bit. And we have a good time together generally if we're just driving down the road, making up new words to old songs or what have you. I enjoy being around the kids, and they help keep me young, I think. Miss your hands. Show more of them. Oh, John Lazy AFPV. Happy Model saying hello, good evening. Just hack it. I would like to know if micro requires less filtering or more compared to 5-inch. You're probably talking about Betaflight 4 and above. I actually don't know for certain because I don't have a lot of experience above 3-inch, and I don't have a lot of Betaflight 4 experience. Betaflight 4 for me didn't fly as well as 357 did. So even if I got a flight controller with 4 on it, I would roll it back to 357 if I could and tune it from there, because I could always make that fly better than 4. And I think I experienced that on a number of different quads there, everything from little whoops like this to what we call toothpicks or 65mm props or 2.5 or 3-inch props. I've only flown one bigger than 3-inch in the last 2 maybe plus years, and that was the Baby Hawk, or I don't think it was called the Baby Hawk, the Emax 4-inch. That was the first one. That's the biggest I've flown in quite a while. Matter of fact, back there on the wall, right about there is a 4-inch, and that's pretty old. That's actually got 1507 motors on it, I think, and some old Luminaire 4-inch props. As more people have gotten in here, if you have a question specifically for me, if you could use the @ symbol and start to type Nick, you'll see names come up, and then you can select one, and it will highlight it on my screen for me. That way I am sure that, that will draw my attention, and I'll be more likely to get to your question because it'll be highlighted for me. June Loco 619. Hello. Lazy FPV. Asking about Emu Flight on a Mobula. I don't know. I haven't had an opportunity to tinker with that much. I've wanted to, but I just haven't gotten it done. My main concern with any of these forks off of Betaflight is, what do we do when they stop updating? So if and that's fine if you don't want to update to anything past, say, Emu Flight, or we had Butterflight for a while. But after a while, their development kind of stops, and then Betaflight keeps going. So that's something to be aware of, but not that big a deal. Because if you stay with what flies good, then you're a happy pilot and you're just flying around having fun. But if you want to try the new things, then you maybe missed out a section of Betaflight learnings that you might need later on. Munkoff? Asking about the Jumper T16 Pro. Unfortunately, I don't have any experience with that. I am an X-Lite user, and I love the X-Lite format. I'm not necessarily in love with what FrSky is doing, especially with their new protocol and kind of locking out the competition, but that format really fits me, how I fly, how I want to fly, and the fact that it's small. It fits in with micros in general because I can grab a couple things, head out, and go fly, and I don't have much to carry with me. Damn Fast, hello. How are you? Oh, the video stuttering license? Is anyone else having stuttering issues? Maybe it's the fact that I've got YouTube open down here to make sure things are still working. I'm not seeing dropped frames from OBS. My CPU, everything's pretty low. Mode 2 Splinter video, Tim Castro asks. Let me scroll up a little bit. I've already missed it. Yeah, the video on the Mode 2 Splinter. That'll be coming soon. It's just a matter of me putting it together. I've flown it. You see, I've got different props than I had before. Unfortunately, the only color motif props I had a crash, been up a prop, and I started getting vibrations in the video, so I had to swap out the props. So this flies really nice, especially with Bob's 1204 motors. It's a good time. Hopefully I've got a flight video that will kind of show you its capabilities in this format. I know it's not the Toothpick 3. I plan to try the Toothpick 3 at some point in time, or TP3 I think it's being called. But this is also a lot of fun with these HQ tri-blades on it. You have just enough weight and thrust to throw it over the house and get that zero throttle kind of drift using a 3S450 battery. Let me scroll down. Yeah, I'm hearing good things about Betaflight 4.1 as well. I haven't had an opportunity to try that yet. Okay, Lazy FPV is saying the stream is good. Audio is clear, but frame rate gets choppy. Other people are saying it's fine. UX65, is that the brushed micro? James Liu asks. Props off, saying #1 fave channel. Thanks, props off. Appreciate it. Ike Dork 1, what's up, Nick? Hello, Ike. I can go in here into the settings and maybe lower the bit rate. Boy, it's already Let's try this. We kind of had this the same last time, that we had a little bit of choppiness, and then it got better. I'm wondering if my internet connection isn't up for the task. I'm seeing my CPU at 59%. That's creeped up since the last time I looked. Kusik. What's my favorite setup? That right now, in most cases, is the damn fast frame. As I showed on the channel, there's a video on the channel that I like to take that out with me and fly that around anytime I'm just kind of doing warm-ups, or maybe I've run out of batteries for everything else, and I'm going to fly that around to finish off the packs that I have charged. That's a custom build. As far as an RTF, that's a little bit harder on the RTF side, trying to think back. I'd probably have to go with this diatone cube. This is I think it's a 229 or 239. But this one, of course, it has a super wide field of view, which I like. And it doesn't have, it has decreased weight because it doesn't have the retail canopy and camera that they went with. So this was kind of an early release first version. Kavar says hello. Hello, Kavar. What did I miss? Oh, the chat sure jumps here. Pardon me. Can I show my workspace on video? I tell you what I'll do sometime. Well, you can kind of see back here and around me. It's just kind of this stuff that you're probably wanting to see. I've got a 4-monitor setup. My camera doesn't really easily move around. I'm worried that if I tinker with it too much, it'll end up falling off this stand. I don't have a studio, so to speak. It's clunky parts that I bought for the cheap. You know, I've got this scissor arm out here. It was like $12. Got another camera up here that was actually, oh, I don't know. I think we had this camera, or I bought this used off of eBay, and it's off another $12 scissor arm, and the snowball. The camera here and the snowball are probably the two most expensive things I bought. And the camera I just bought recently. That was something that took months and months, and it's the Sony A5100. That allowed me to stay in the budget that I had set for purchasing a camera. There were some good recommendations. Some of you may have seen my, I posted on Facebook asking for other people's experiences and expertise in cameras for streaming and video recording setup. Looking to improve the video quality a little bit. And this actually wasn't one that came up in that post, but it came up as part of the research from that post. And because it is a couple years old, it was pretty inexpensive. License to Drive just finished building his first proper toothpick with push-on unknown brand props. Yeah, the problem with push-on props that I've seen since we kind of went through that phase is that the prop shafts are inconsistent. I think that's what it is. Actually, seeing it, you know, sometimes I would think it was a tuning issue or a vibration issue. And I think its props aren't, the shafts aren't consistent on each motor. That there can be a slight variation, and because we're using that compression or pressed-on fitting, that at higher throttle or quick movements, that it could slip a little bit, and then that kind of throws things in an odd state when it comes to the flight. So, yeah, I always right now prefer the screw-on props. I will say that I did test with Bob's motors, the 1204 FPV cycle motors, and those Jimfan 3018 props. They do fit nice and snug, and but I didn't have a chance to fly those yet, so I can't validate that those stay on real well. But as far as the traditional push-on 65mm props, better off putting screws on them, I think, if we can. There are some motors still around that don't have screw holes for props. It's so nice having you in the room while I'm building Albert Kim's damn fast build. I should mention, I did see before I got started, someone was asking about a giveaway. I keep shaking the table. I'm sorry, my setup is not good. I didn't plan to do a giveaway tonight, and I still don't know of a good way to do a live stream giveaway, so I'm not really prepared to do that. I do have a box of Well, there's a box of stuff that I collected, and I've had it sitting in the same box for probably, I don't know, a month, maybe longer, that I thought it could be useful, especially for people who like to build and tinker. A lot of different components, frames, motors, might be some video gear in there as well. But I'm not prepared to do that tonight, but maybe next time if I can figure out a good way of doing it. What I had thought about was just throwing out some random question and then go back through the live stream chat after the recording's done and then find out who was first. But depending upon internet connectivity, that's not really fair. Some people have higher speed connections and some people are further away, and therefore they would get it last or not as quick. Matthew Barella, he asked about flying in the house and if I've ever gotten in any hot water or flying it into any hair. I have not. My wife is she's great about this stuff. I don't fly as much when we have a lot of people over, though. Now, my son was flying. He wasn't doing FPV. He was just, it was probably 2 years ago. He was flying a really little, quad. Well, it's little like this, but it didn't have a camera in it. And he took off and he got it tangled up in his sister's hair, who was standing right next to it. I was being a bad dad and I wasn't paying that close attention. I was cooking dinner at the time when he hit the throttle and it thump right into her hair. We were able to get it out. I had to take the motor out and everything out of the quad in order to get it unwound and off her hair. But yeah, I have not done that, and I don't catch any heat. I did, was it Thanksgiving 2 years ago, where we had hosted, and most of the family had kind of dissipated, and it was getting to that slower time of Thanksgiving where full bellies are resting. And I got out of quad and I was showing one of the kids or a couple of the kids just kind of flying around. And my mother-in-law didn't care for it. She wanted, she wanted my wife to shut that down. And my wife just kind of brushed her off and says, no, it's fine. And I was like, whoa, hey, that's great. James broke his Mobula 7. What do I think you should get next? Well, why not fix your Mobula 7? I use a lot of welder on those frames. Works great. I have some E6000. Well, this is RTV04, so not quite the same stuff, but DX704. That I wouldn't use that. But yeah, of the stuff I've got at arm's reach, welder if it's a frame issue or a plastic issue. If it's a motor issue. Robert Thompson turned me on to. I've got a couple of them. Oh, there's another one right here. Flying these trash can frames, and it wasn't necessarily the frames he turned me on to, but it was flying these 1102 motors. The prop authority that you get with these 1102 motors is real nice. It's a lot better than, say, flying the 06, 03 motors or any in that line. Even maybe the 07 with a prop, but especially if you're running 4-bladed props, 1102 motors have a lot more authority on them, and therefore when you're flying them, you get quicker response. And when you're flying in the house, especially, if you're flying at speed or you need to make quick corrections, having that prop authority can really benefit the flight. So if you're looking at new motors for your Mobula 7, maybe look at picking up some 1102s. These aren't necessarily props I'm endorsing. These are just props I had and I stuck on. So I think these are our King Kong props, maybe. I'm not certain. These are the props that I like. These are the Gemfan 3-bladed props. I like those props quite a bit. Props Off is asking, I finally broke down and blew the dust off my wallet and got out the Rattel. Liking it pretty well. What's your favorite and why? Well, I do really like the Rattel, but because micros have changed so much, that is an area we can save weight and gain performance. It's not much. I think, what is it, a gram and maybe 1.2 grams total if we go from a Rattel to one of the new Nano cameras. I use the Runcam Nano 2 on most of mine. I've got a slingshot sitting here with the Nano 2. My gnarly Primo 3 which that'll be coming. Gnarly has sent me a couple of sets of motors that were prototypes for testing purposes, just to get some feedback on. So I do plan to review this as well. We just haven't settled on a motor. I've got another set of prototype motors here in a bag that they are 1203 5700 kV motors. Of course, I don't have them hooked up yet. I don't know anything about them. Those just arrived the other night. I've got a little cruiser toothpick trash can Larva X thing, also with the run cam. So I'm using a lot of the run cam Nano 2s because it saves weight and still gives us a pretty good image. But like in the Mode 2 Splinter, I know some people don't like these cameras. I find that when I take the extra weight of a separate VTX and a higher quality camera, that I can feel the performance, and I enjoy that quite a bit. There are crash saving maneuvers you can make that I feel more comfortable with the decreased weight using an all-in-one. But again, you know, if you're not enjoying what you're looking through, it's not as fun. So that's a personal preference. I do have the Foxeer Razor cameras. It might be in this box. Oh shoot. Yeah. They're still in the box. I think these are the Razor. Yeah, this is the Razor Mini. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. So I look forward to trying that one out. I hear their low light performance on those is pretty good, as well as good overall performance in daylight as well. Oh, I missed a bunch of chats. Sorry, guys. Oh, Matthew's saying that unless you're flying 1S, a 06X 65mm absolutely rips on 1S. Maybe. I just like the prop authority on 1102, but that's 2S. So he could have a very good point there. Could I swap the guts of the Mobula 7 on a 65mm frame? Sure, but you're going to need new props. Pretty much the internal workings of all these Whoop form factors, as far as, you know, the mounting pattern for the board and the cameras and stuff, they're all the same. You do have to be careful about your motors, because Happy Model does have their other motor pattern that may not be in all cases compatible with the frame, so that's something to be aware of. What a wild Nick appeared, Kyle says. Kyle Winiger? Okay, Rogue Factor asked a question, but I want to highlight this. It's up in the chat a ways. So he started to do the @ and then the Nick, but I think maybe clicked off instead of selecting from the pop-out, so it didn't highlight it. I'm glad I didn't miss it. He says, I questioned my choice when I picked up the 1105 4500B motors for a 2S 138mm cruiser build with a new H-Crew 3-inch bi-blades. 7+ minutes on 2S 650 milliamp G&B. I don't quite understand the question there, Rogue. It does sound like it would definitely have poor prop authority kind of throughout. 1105 on a 3-inch. It seems awful small unless you've got a special motor. The Mamba 1105, unless you're talking about the Mamba 1105s, they are probably the most special 1105 motor I've run, and I've bought a bunch of different motors. Those Zing motors that came through, they're okay. Nothing really to write home about. I should have made videos on all of those, but I didn't. The Emax motors at the 1106, they're fine. I'm always looking for that hidden gem. You know, a lot of the motors anymore, the differences are so small, or they're very specific differences based upon prop and weight. So that would be another thing I would question about your cruiser build, is what's the weight. I see you say it's 138mm. Is this a custom frame that you made? No. I think James did not answer the what's your favorite toothpick. Happy Model motor shafts break like toothpicks. For me, it depends on which ones you're talking about, because Happy Model has a pretty wide range of motors and different motor stem sizes. On the 2mm motor, or not 2mm, on the 1.5mm motor shafts, I don't have a problem with those, but I have kind of moved away from push-on props, and I'm using the screw holes as I did on the Tomo Quad Slingshot here. So that's kind of where I'm at with props. I don't feel that I lose much, and I definitely gain some rigidity and durability with these props over push-on props. Like on the Nameless new quad here, it's got the push-on props. It started with what I think are maybe the King Kong brand of the props, and I've switched to the HQ. This will be coming. I need to fly it more yet. Still working on just getting accustomed to it and kind of picking it apart as far as things I'm looking for. I will say one thing. They have switched their carbon out. I have a spare frame that they sent with this. Their carbon on that particular quad that I just showed is much improved over what we've seen in the past. Matter of fact, when I was kind of getting it ready to fly one night before bed, I was downright surprised. And I don't think this will come through the camera, so there's a little bit of a trust factor there. But this carbon is pretty stiff. It rivals the Damn Fast stiffness, but it is often, I think it's 2mm thick, whereas the Damn Fast was like 3mm, 3mm thick, and it feels real smooth. And they've got that nice little logo, if you can see that in there. Maybe if I put my hand behind it, the question mark in there. But the downside is the slots for the battery straps are so narrow. If you want to get a metal buckle strap through them, it's, you might be able to do it. I tried on the Ready to Fly, but if you have some diamond files, yeah, I can get it started. So I could probably, use some tools on it to get it through there. But they're very, very narrow, and I would want to open those up a little bit. These are Pyrodrone straps in white. Hopefully that focuses. There we go. Let me move my finger. These are nice metal buckles, but of course, you gain about 1 gram with these, depending upon what you're using on. You might not want to do that. Did I miss any of the questions? Will asked about a tuning tutorial. I kind of did one right as Betaflight 4 came out. I didn't get into the filters much. Just using a community preset. And I think I personally need to dive into 4.1 much heavier before I were to bring any sort of video out. I wouldn't want to guess my way through that. Of course, guessing, that could be an interesting way of going about tuning. Just, hey, what does this do? Fly it, see what happens. Monster Mechanic asked, do you know of a Whoop style frame that will accept a 30x30 VTX? Well, using Whoop style to be very, to use it very loosely, you're really looking at something that's, 3-inch. Where'd that go? A 3-inch, which most of these are still using 20x20 now, that have the prop guards built into them. As far as a true Whoop frame, like something like this, I don't. Guys, if you guys know of anything that we can help Monster Mechanic out, he's looking for a Whoop style frame that accepts a 30x30 VTX. Maybe we can answer or get him something he might be able to look for. Mad Fisher has got 6 Whoops, it sounds like, 3 brushed and 3 brushless. I do not. I might have one of the original Inductrix sitting back on the shelf. That would be my only brushed Whoop that I have now. And that hasn't flown for a long, long time. I think I'm getting caught up here. Whoa, bunch of stuff just came through all of a sudden. MC Creations has sent in $5. I'm not sure. I think MC is in Brazil. Is that correct, MC? I'm not sure of what your monetary units are there. And he says, it's not much, but to help with the weekend's beer. I appreciate it. It's not necessary, but I appreciate the sentiment. Rangarok, your comment was filtered off by YouTube, so I didn't have anything to do with that. Basically, YouTube is cracking down on what it sees as spam for live streams. The Rangarok FPV is trying to get 200 subs. Props off the hidden gem, Skystar's X120 bolt motors. Yeah, those were pretty special. Those got me on that 4500 kV path of trying to find others, because that brand, I didn't have a lot of confidence we were going to see it for very long, or it was going to shift into a different direction, or under a different label, and then we wouldn't be able to find it. We wouldn't know what it was. So I spent, I don't know, 6-7 sets of motors at 4500 kV trying to find some that were equal to it. Never really did. So yeah, I completely agree there. On 4S, that is. Oh, and I kind of glazed over it twice about the Happy Model motor shafts. The 1mm ones do break quite a bit. I think that's why they switched, but I think they're smaller motors. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but they're smaller motors. Still have the 1mm motor shafts. Those at 080X and lower, I think, are still 1mm. Props off says my favorite 2020 stack is the Mamba MK2. Yeah, it's a good stack. Can't go wrong with that. Diatone's been making some quality products. Not everyone is perfect or great, but they've all been at the very least solid. Oh yeah, the Brush Zero. I forgot about that one. I have a Brush Zero as well, and I do enjoy flying this. I kind of forget about it because I don't charge a lot of 1S batteries all the time, because 2S has kind of been the hype or the trend or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, these are good flyers. I would say, guys, if you haven't flown an alien board, it's different, and you might want to give that some consideration if you can afford it. Excuse me. I think most, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't the like top Tiny Whoop pilots all running Zero boards? Maybe not, but I thought they were. I know that Yell Baker or Bacher, he does amazing things. You know, he gets in a little room with the chair and a table and flip flops and curtain taps and over the chandelier, and we haven't seen a lot of him recently. He's gotten probably busy. Mom P87 with $50 in their local currency. Hey, from Norway, thanks for all the excellent can't talk. Thank for all the excellent reviews. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Nits76. Hey, Nick Burns. Now that Whoop boards are all-in-ones are great, what to do with older 2020 stacks seems outdated now. You could still use them on a number of different things. That one's 16 by 16. Just trying to pick up a few frames here and see what I could find. Yeah, 20 by 20 stacks. They're more traditional 2.5-inch prop quads now. And we aren't seeing a lot of those new frames come to market anymore. It's not to say that there aren't a lot of frames already to pick from for that. I would say make a 3-incher. I mean, like a traditional 3-incher. Big 14 whatever motors and running 3-inch tri-blade props. These are still a good time. I mean, I know that this is kind of old school now. And these LDRC motors are actually pretty good. I don't know how durable they are. What are these? These are 1406. So the 1406 are not the battery killers that you might find in a 1407 or 1408. These are 3600 kVs. They used to have blue motor wires. As a matter of fact, I think in a box over there, I have a set with blue motor wires, which I really wanted to get because blue, I'm a sucker for that stuff, but I never got around to building with them. But I've flown those motors a couple times, and they perform pretty well, pretty efficient, pretty powerful. That's what I would do with a 20 by 20 stack, if it can support the amp draw. John Nickerson, I'm not sure if you're asking, but he mentions the iFlight dual gyro. I don't know what the benefit of that would be. Maybe there is. MC Creation's going to try to connect to the Wi-Fi again. Be right back. He must be having connection problems. Dougie FPV just got the Tiny Hawk Freestyle. Congratulations. That should be fun. Hopefully you live in a place where you still have lots of good weather to fly in. Whoa, it jumps again. Boy, this is crazy on the... It's almost as though I get a whole bunch. Okay, I'm trying to get back to the spot that I was at. Okay, some guys talking amongst one another. That's fine. Yeah, good. License Drive said he made his toothpick using a 20x20. Just had to design and print an adapter to fit it on the 16x16 hole frame. Yeah, I think there's actually some on Thingiverse, aren't there? I thought I saw some adapters. Philip, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. If it's Philippe or Philip, he says that the Alien Team Alien Whoop does have some of those skilled Whoop racers indeed, but they're working on a brushless version of the firmware that should run on any F4 board. Yeah, I did hear that. I think that's been in process for quite a while. I wouldn't want to say, but I think that was part of a conversation I had about a year ago. Maybe it was only 8 months. And my brain doesn't remember timelines all that well. Chad's still flying his Blade Plus. Flies really good when I use my DX6. Chris Paget asks, Nick Burns live and in Technicolor. Yes, hopefully the stream's going well. I did lower it a little bit on the bitrate. Hopefully it still looks okay. Well, as good as looks this picture can look. And sounds all right. Thank you, Philippe. It's Philip. Philip. Sorry. All right. How many, Mad Fisher asks, how many batteries do you have? Same question to everyone else. I have a lot of batteries. I have two toolboxes that are, I think they're 13x20. So I can get big bags in them, and I'd get them out. They're kind of around the corner. When I'm charging, I drag them over here on the ground. Of course, I keep them in this area. I have 3 big bags that are about like this. They're the real ACC bags that I keep batteries in, and I have on marker. I've written on them in marker what cell count they are, so I know what they are, what's inside each bag. I think each bag, depending upon the battery size, probably holds between 40 and 70 batteries, and I have 6 of those. But 2 of them are not full. One's like a working bag, so I'll have like batteries, bench batteries that I'm using for builds, and then it will have the batteries I plan to go fly in the next day or two in it charged. More batteries I need to recharge for more flying. So I have a lot of batteries, and some of those I don't use. Some of them then just aren't any good. They may have been okay at the time, but they're not any good anymore. And I've been doing better about getting rid of some of those older batteries, just taking them down to Batteries Plus and handing them to them. They always look at me strange. They're like, "What are you handing me?" You know, this this age of fella walks in with toy batteries and said, "Hey, you need to dispose of these for me." Of course, they're like 24 or something like that, thinking this is weird. Matthew Brillis says, silverware for brushed, Betaflight for brushless micros, Emu for F1 for 5-inch. Okay. As I said, I don't have any Emu Flight experience. I haven't had an opportunity to strip something down and go test it. See, when I want to compare that stuff, I want to fly it. I want to come in, flash it, reset it up, go right back out and fly it again to see what the difference is. Otherwise, I don't know that I could give it that much of a comparison, because my experience from what it was before to what it became is too far away. Maybe that's just my memory and my stick feel. I think I would end up adjusting and going, it's about the same. That's my concern. I could be wrong. It might be dramatic. Dino asks, what would be a good screw on prop for the Phantom? I believe you're talking about the GEP RC Phantom. Is that running 65 millimeter? Anybody tell me? If it is a 65 millimeter prop, I would say these HQ 65 millimeter prop is about your only screw-on option, unless you go to a tri-blade, which is just about 65 millimeters. Then most of those will screw on. But I wouldn't do that if your motor, unless your motor's at least an 1105. But I can't remember the motor that came on the Gepressy Phantom. Oh, and a firebox. I saw that scroll by here. Drone Days has a firebox full of, I think he's talking about the batteries. I've talked about this before, but so I bought cheap toolboxes from Harbor Freight. I think they were like $17. If you're not familiar with Harbor Freight, they're like a hardware store that, I don't want to give it a bad name. They carry cheaper stuff. And so I could buy a metal toolbox that is relatively reliable for cheap. And I took hardy backer board that you usually put down underneath on the floor for your subflooring for when you're going to do tile. So it's cement board essentially. And I cut that so I could line it, and then I have a piece on the top and the bottom. So I've kind of got a casket for the battery bags to all go inside. That's how I keep them all together. And I have the one bag that is my working bag. Those are the ones that are going to be charged. I keep those separately. Matthew Brilla says, it's just a pre-tuned Betaflight fork with way less crap going on. Much smoother out of the box. So does it have things like GPS? Could you put GPS with Emu Flight? I mean, that's one of the things I think of that I have never used in all my time with Betaflight that others might be considering garbage. Batteries not included. FPV says GNB guy has really good customer service. I believe you're talking about Jerry Lang or Liang. Lang, I think. Oh, props off. It said something. I missed it. Where'd it go? LiPo batteries are like the size of your garage. Never enough. Yeah, that's funny. I'll tell you a story. I'm guilty of story time, especially when I've had too much caffeine, which is today. Today I didn't work. You might notice I'm a little bit not shaven. I took our middle child, who's just turned 12 a couple weeks ago, over to some appointments in another town. And it's pretty much an all-day event. We had our first appointment at 9:45. Takes about an hour and 15 minutes to get there. So she meets with that doctor. She has a skin disorder called scleroderma. It's actually not a skin disorder. It's a rheumatology disorder. Her immune system is attacking her skin. It makes it harden. If you don't treat it, you lose the pliability of the skin, and then you can't smile or wink or stuff like that. It's really rare for kids to have this. Typically, you'll see pictures of it in the hairline, that it has this like worm or scar looking thing in the head, in the hairline. But anyway, she has that, and we've been maintaining that since she was 4, so 8 years. But we do regular checkups every 3 months over there. So we spent the day over there, and she doesn't mind that too much outside of the labs, because we get to stop and eat in a restaurant. We get to spend some time together, just one-on-one. Can't remember why I was telling you that, but we'll jump into the other story that I was going to tell about my garage. So we have a homeowners association, and homeowners associations around here, they are toothless. They threaten you with, we'll sue you, or we'll put a hold on or a lien on your house, and it's like, well, whatever. So I have that shed out back. That's technically against HOA rules, but I don't have space for the mower that we need or we have for the yard in the garage. And they had come by and kind of given me the riot act a number of times. And I said, look, here's the gig. If you're going to hold me to that standard, you've got to hold everyone else to the same standard. And as it's written in the book is no outbuildings. So that means all sorts of things could fall under no outbuildings, because at no point in the book is outbuildings defined. They're defining my outbuilding. My shed is an outbuilding. So you could say a doghouse is an outbuilding. Something goes in it, right? So HOAs, they're all volunteers, so they're giving their time, but they kept showing up at dinner time. They'd show up at like 5:40 when I've got like 4 minutes to finish up whatever we're doing before we've got to get back out the door. And this didn't happen a lot. I shouldn't make it, too extreme. One day they come to the door, and I got 3 of these guys that are probably in their mid to late 60s standing there. and I know what they're there for. And I say, you got 30 seconds to give me your pitch on why I need to get rid of the shed. And I'm going to tell you the same thing I've been telling you. I'll get rid of it as soon as everyone else gets rid of theirs too. If we can come together and settle on a date to get rid of all the outbuildings, the, you know, dog runs, dog sheds, because I knew there were others in the neighborhood, then we'll all do it. But if we're not going to do that, stop coming around and bother me at dinner time. They haven't been back since. And it's a silly thing. Our neighbor across the back fence line, this is a little bit personal. So our neighbors across the back fence line, which I talk to him all the time when we're out doing yard work, which might not look like I do much of it, but I do. His wife has taken a great exception to our shed, and so they don't pay their membership dues, and it's not much. They withhold their membership dues, and then they go to all the meetings and complain. And that was one of the things I told the HOA guys when they come by, is like, are you getting complaints from members, people who have paid for their membership to the HOA? And they're like, well, yes. It's like, have they paid? Because I know where the complaint's coming from. And then they kind of stammer around and they're like, no, get them to pay. They won't talk. Hand in the air and yelling, no smiling. Sorry, that was a long time. Oh, Philip says he has another super chat there. Hey folks, 83 watching. Oh, I wasn't keeping track of that. I forget where I see that. Thank you, Philip. I appreciate it. Matthew sounds like he's having an adult beverage. I'm not familiar with that. I don't drink much. Used to. Just don't anymore. It's not that it was ever a problem. It just one of those things that I got into my mid-20s and it just stopped becoming part of my life. I do. I'll still have a drink sometimes. Maybe 4 or 5 times a year. Nothing against it. MC Creations is damn bureaucrats. Matthew Smiley says, all right, who disliked the live stream? It's okay. I don't get worried about it. Internet's a big place. Somebody probably swung by and just pounded that thumbs down button. It's all right. Oh. License to Drive noticed that the downvote happened hours before the stream even started. Interesting. Maybe it's because I changed the time, because originally I saw it was kind of impromptu. We had just gotten back from her appointments, and I was like, you know, the way tonight's setting up, because swimming had been canceled for the girls, so I knew we weren't going to be going to that, and that would allow things to fall in pretty orderly place. I thought, okay, let's go ahead and schedule this. And it scheduled it for, like, I think it was 12:30 a.m., which was actually already past. Maybe it was 12:30 a.m. tonight. I don't remember the date. So I went back in and changed it to 10:30. Maybe that's why they were downvoting. OG Scoot Kent West says, I quit drinking when I turned 21. Isn't it supposed to be the opposite way around? David Parker asks, what's normal voltage sag in a Mobula 7? Mine sag to 2.8, and I land, and then they recover all the way up to 3.8. That sounds pretty severe. What batteries are you running? There's a certain amount of voltage sag you're going to get that's going to be natural, but that sounds pretty severe to me. So if you can let me know what batteries, it's likely it's not a high quality battery, unfortunately. And I bought a lot of bad batteries over the last couple years. They're my bench batteries. They're the ones that I'll use them until when you plug them in, the flight controller doesn't even boot up anymore, and then I'll just take it down to the batteries plus place. Where'd that go? Keep up the great work. Snoopy FPV, thank you for the live chat. Nick, keep up the great work. Thank you, Snoopy, for stopping by. If you're still here, welcome. Mad Fisher did most of my drinking in my youth. It gets harder the older you get, doesn't it? I didn't get married until I was 30, and then we had our first child at 32. And I had already pretty much stopped drinking for the most part at that time. Munkanoff asks if I've ever been chased out of a local public park with no legal premise. No. Mainly because I fly here at home almost exclusively. I've read and talked to other people online that have had experiences. Matter of fact, you can find a fair number of videos on YouTube of people who were flying, possibly FPV in various sorts, where they had other things happen to them. I've heard of people being punched while they're in the goggles, essentially robbed, I think. Other people, come walking up to them and start pushing them, and hey, you can't do that here. This is, a dog park, and it's not. It's just a park. It's now 3 dislikes. So the dislikes is going up. It's okay. Whoa, I missed a whole bunch here. What's normal? Okay, got that one. Based out of a local park. Field of Drones. Hey, Nick. Sorry I'm late. No worries. Resdismation. Hey, Nick. Enjoy your vids. License to drive. Comments about the drinking age and traveling abroad. Okay, I don't know how to say this name. It's AWOLASAP. 3-inch twig versus 3-inch TP3. I don't think I have either. Do I? Well, no. I have the twig, and then I have this one. So we've got the twig back here, and then I've got the diatone cube versus a TP3. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to fly the TP3. The Mode 2 Splinter as close as I got, and that's not even a 3-incher. That's 2.5. I thought it was a 3-incher when I bought the frame. Graduataba is the name of a city. Sao Paulo State, Brazil. I'm not pronouncing that right, I'm sure. Someone needs to make a winter drone. I live in Wisconsin. It's cold, but winter can make some great video flying. Yeah, I see a lot of cinematic FPV footage come across on Facebook and up in Canada. That's pretty cool. That kind of white with all those green treetops popping out. Whoa, a bunch more just went by. License to Drive says punched and robbed while flying FPV. Oh, he was commenting about that, the story I had heard about. Matthew up in Sheboygan, he conformal coats everything. That's a good idea. I've never done it. Conformal coating or waterproofing, whatever technique you use, I've never done it. I'm in a really fortunate position to where if it's raining outside, I'll just come in and fly in the house to get my fix or to get my relaxation, whatever I need to do. I should mention, I keep sticking this up in the video. No one's asked about it yet, but it's the new Beta FPV Meteor 65. It's 1S. It's that one with that new plug, the one they call BT 2.0. I don't know if this will focus. See if I can cover my face. So I really like this plug because it's real smooth. Sometimes those PH20s can be a little bit difficult to push together and get apart. My concern is that it's going to be patented and then they're going to try to make it proprietary. So if we can't open it up for use for battery manufacturers and things of that nature, I just don't think it'll last. But we'll see. I don't know. I can't predict the future of these things. This is a new frame mold, at least it appears so. The struts on it seem to be shaped a little bit differently. But this will be releasing, I think, in about a week or so. It flies pretty good, but I do prefer 2S. Just the prop authority that you get from 2S, I prefer that. It probably has a lot to do with the fact that I am terrible in angle mode, and I prefer to fly acro or rate mode or no self-stabilization. This flies well. It just doesn't quite have the response that I'm looking for when I'm flying in the house anymore. Before 2S became such a big thing, yeah, this would fly pretty good, and I'll show it, and we'll have a video on it. It probably won't be this week, maybe late next week. I only have 2 batteries, so getting flight time with it is a struggle. These are the only 2 batteries I got for that thing. and they sent one adapter to charge it, so I have to charge one battery at a time. So it's a little bit of a funny thing. Batteries not included, says Jesse Perkins. Are you lurking in the background? Johnny DRC says looks like a small XT30. Yeah, it does. I'm told that it's supposed to be able to carry more current, 9 or more amps, 9 amps. They're rated up to 9 amps. Oh, Philip is saying we saw it on your Instagram. We don't care. Or he didn't say that. I'm putting words in his mouth. What's the largest drone I've flown inside my house? I'm guessing it's probably back when I first got started on 2S whoops. There's and you could look back. I have got a playlist of indoor brushless, and I think there was one by Tomo Quads where we had 3D printed hoops, so to speak. And that's probably a 2-incher, but I suspect because at the time we didn't have brushless whoop boards, that the dimensions, it was probably closer to 100 or maybe even 110 millimeter motor post to motor post. So I think that would probably be one of the biggest I've flown inside the house. You flew the Ishin Twig, Nick. It's almost a TP3. That's you're true. That's true. I did forget about Ishin Twig. I just want to try Bob's out, and I need to get a second set of motors. I might use the Mode 2 Splinter as a testing platform because I did get the Betaflight board, which has the connectors on it, if you can see that, as well as the ability to solder the top. So if I have motors with the connectors, I can just plug them in and fly them. If I need to solder them on, I can. This is a good light setup, easy access to the pads if I need them. So that might become like a new testing platform for the new line of micro motors. The Ishin Twig was fine. I wish they'd have used a different name at the very least. What is minus 10C in Fahrenheit? I guess I could look that up. That sounds cold. Oh, geez. GY Sergeant 0317 carries a 45 when he goes flying FPV. Yeah, I bet you they do tend to be polite. Have I ever considered switching to Spectrum? Actually, I came from Spectrum, and I didn't switch because the Spectrum gave me any problems. I was using Devo or deviation modified radios at that time. I had Devo 7E, and then I moved on to a Devo 10. There's a Devo 10E. I can't remember. It's still back here, right back there. So I put Deviation TX on them, and that allowed them to run DSMX or Spectrum protocol right out of the box without any mods. I switched because you couldn't get many of the RTFs and DSMX first. So in my case, where at that time I was buying a lot of stuff for reviews, I couldn't review anything that they had available at that time. Even if it was in stock, if it was an RTF with an included receiver, DSMX was just out. It would be out like 4 weeks or 6 weeks later. So and then it wasn't really relevant. I would still get it and fly it around and maybe make a review video. But I switched primarily because FR Sky was dominating the market. And if you were going to review current models, then you had to have FR Sky. Fly Sky was actually coming out before Spectrum as well. Matthew is talking to Chad. Scrolling down here. Jesse P, where's Waldo? Batteries not included FPV. You're playing a private game, or is there something going on? Cream Puff, yeah. Right there. Cream Puff. Did I miss? Nope. Okay, I'm catching up. Good night, guys. This is Tim Castro. No, that was Tim Castro asked about the Cream Puff. What goggles am I using nowadays? Still using the SkyZone 030 goggles. I'm not using the PowerPlay DVR. It's right back there. I almost made another video about it because I broke it down into vertical frames, and as I was just kind of breaking it down for myself. And as I watched it and I got to thinking about it, there was two things that bothered me. One is just the physicality of carrying that additional thing out and having that draped off my head. I didn't like the cable that much. After I started using it to try to figure out whether I was going to use it or not, I didn't like the cable. And then because it was inconsistent, it not natively like there was a problem that it was inconsistent with the frame rate that it recorded. If it detected it was a PAL signal, it recorded it, 40 some odd frames a second, and if it detected that it was NTSC, then it recorded at 60. So that was kind of what made me think, it's not worth it. The SkyZone DVR is very, very good. I'm very, very happy with it, and I'll just continue to use it. Props Off said I had a confrontation with Beta FPV many years ago due to their battery connectors. Rolled pins in the 2.0's a freaking joke. The Tiny Hawk uses them too. I'm going to do a video soon. Yeah, I've heard about the roll pins, and that is a valid issue that as a hobby we need to move away from. Like, to my knowledge, Tiny Whoop is one of the few like typical quad vendors where you can get these connectors that are solid pins. And it's not going to come through the camera, but they tend to look like this. So these will have the solid pins, so you'll have they'll work better generally. And Nate Payne, I think, made a video on the PH20 and the rolled connectors a while back, where he was talking about it. He flies a lot of whoops. The EV800DM, please. These are the new. These? Yeah, it's coming up. I guess the short version of it is I'm kind of down to 2 bits on this. Either the screens aren't very good, or I can't get them to focus at any focal length. They're inexpensive. They feel solid. It does feel like they've upgraded their materials a little bit, but and this is probably part of my delay in doing a review for these, is I have used them, I have gone over them, but I'm not certain of my stance, because even with my glasses, like typically when I put these sorts of things on, I don't need my glasses. Matter of fact, to read stuff, to see it clearly, I don't need my glasses. So when I would fly, I would not have my glasses on. Although these do fit the glasses, and that can be great for a lot of people. Whether I have my glasses on or have my glasses off, or I telescope this out or not, I can't get it to focus very well, or the screens just aren't very good, or the screen is not very good. That's the short version. So I don't know what else to tell you about that. Everything else seems to work like you would expect. The reception's going to be, it's not going to be rapid fire. It's not going to be SkyZone. It's going to be somewhere less than that. License to drive. I flew my GPS quad inside my house. It's about the same size as a DJI Phantom. Really? That had to have been pretty sporty. Janky FPV says, then give them away. Yeah, most of the stuff's going to be given away at some point in time. I do think it's worth doing a review to kind of explain the fact that if you're a glasses wearer, you couldn't buy those 800DM goggles and be assured they're going to look good. That's talking through it now with you. That's kind of where I'm standing, is that there's just no way I can be sure that even if you're a glasses wearer and your prescription's relatively minor, that they're going to look good. It could be that it don't look good for anyone. That's possible. I have a hard time relying on my family because they really don't know what they're looking at for the most part. They don't look at the image of the goggles and say that looks good or that looks bad. They kind of look at it as that's about what they expect. They watch the DVR of flights, but they don't know what it looks like in the goggles for the most part. I've had stuff on them and they say, yeah, it looks fine. Like, well, what am I supposed to do with that information? Somebody flew a 7-inch. I saw that inside their house. So janky FPV, yeah, I give a lot of stuff away. I've actually got a box back here. I screwed up. I had an international shipment to Mr. Australia, if you remember him from the giveaway video. I won't butcher his name again. I've done it too many times already. I found a box that everything fit nicely in, allowed me to pack things up nice and safe for its travels. But I missed the fact that it said USPS priority mail. So when I took it to ship, they're like, oh, that's going priority. And then the shipping cost was through the roof. And I'm like, oh, no, we can't do that. So I need to repackage it, take it back down to the post office for more reasonable shipping. Matthew Smiley asks, what 3S 450 battery, 450 milliamp battery do you recommend? I have yet to find a battery that is as inexpensive, as reliable, and performs as well as G&B. Infinity batteries are good, but I think they're more expensive. At least they were when I last looked into them, and I have a fair number of those batteries as well, the Infinity brand. They might not be 3S 450, they could be other sizes, and they do perform well, but my recollection was they were very expensive. That might be marginally expensive now. Jeff FPV says, license to drive GPS quads in the house don't count. GY Sergeant 0317 just picked up the Eachine EV200 goggles. New, or did you pick them up used? Oh, those are the I was thinking of the EV100s. Those are the ones that are a little bit bigger field of view, more prototypical design, if I recall correctly. Drops off, flew the 7-inch in the house, and his wife is still mad. Yeah, MC Creations, yes, Andy did coin the twig name, Tiny Weight in Grams, and I believe I mentioned that in my video. If I didn't, that was an oversight on my part. Brian Graves from Racer X, I don't know the story, but I believe that Andy gave him permission to use the twig name. Thomas Flymer, what's up, guys? Just got here. What are we talking about? Quad stuff. The Eachine Novice 925 FPV asks, I don't have it yet. I don't know what has happened. I think something happened in shipping. It was sent a couple of weeks ago, I thought. Just hasn't showed up yet. So if it shows up, I'll take a look at it. And put together a review video. I know a lot of people are going to be interested in that. I think it's going to be difficult for me to show it with the stock radio on how it would fly for me, but because the stock radio is really with the pads made for a thumber, and I'm a pincher, and so I'm going to have to kind of rig something up. Hopefully the thumb pads remove, and I can put some standoffs, some nylon standoffs on the sticks to create something that I'm used to. Otherwise, you see this all the time. A radio like the X-Lite comes out, and you'll see reviews where somebody is a thumber, and they'll say, this is only for thumbers. Well, if you're a thumber, and the radio comes out and it fits you very well, doesn't that mean it's good for thumbers? It doesn't mean it's not good for someone else. So I'm making a similar mistake in assuming that the radio that comes with the Eachine Novice isn't good for a pincher like myself, but we'll find out. License to drive. I'd post a link to the 28-second clip of my flying the GPS quad indoors in 2016, but I think YouTube filters out links. It may or may not. You can try it, and we'll see what happens. Matthew's been using the Turnigy 3S 450s. That's probably a Nanotech brand, probably from Hobby King. I believe Turnigy is a Hobby King brand. If I'm off in what Hobby King's doing with their batteries, I'm not a big fan of too many of their batteries. I used to fly their batteries quite a bit a couple years ago, and I felt like they had a limited life. Like, you would fly them and you get like 40 or 60 packs on them, and then the battery would just start falling off. The performance would fall through the roof. Next thing you know, you're getting minute and a half flights where you used to get 2 or 3, whatever. Now I will say that the Nanotechs, the small ones, so far have been holding up for me, but there's 3 different kinds of those small ones, and they all come with the red JST connectors. You have to swap them out for XT60s, or XT30s, excuse me. But the ones that are 45 to 90C, they're the best performers. The match cell ones, that is a lottery on whether you actually get match cells or not. And I think I talked about that inside of another video a while back. So the match cell ones are not worth your money, in my opinion, unless they've made a dramatic improvement over what they were doing back when I had bought them. And then there's another one that has a different C rating that's slightly below 45 to 90C that's not nearly as good as the 45 to 90C. Of course, they're all, as I said, JSTs, at least they were when I last looked. So in order to run them on most of our equipment now, you've got to have XT30s on there, or you have to make an adapter. I wouldn't suggest making an adapter because the JST just isn't rated. Is it rated above 9 amps? Maybe you guys in the chat can tell me. Ovonic makes a good battery. I've had good luck with them. Field of Drone says, I've heard that, but where can you buy those? I haven't seen them. Is that a UK brand or something? Yeah, John's asking about a toothpick build. I did the Mode 2 Splinter build just last week or 10 days ago, and that's very, very similar to a toothpick build in that it's going to use primarily the same components. So you can look at that if you want to, but it's not a true toothpick build. And of course, I used an all-in-one camera in VTX, which makes things simpler. And I actually like the super wide field of view. Kebab has said that RunCam, I think he said that RunCam was making a wider lens for their cameras. We'll see. I know that, I think, isn't the 1.8 millimeter or 1.8 lens out? I thought I saw that for sale, but I didn't see it with a camera, at least not available. Jumper T16 Pro looks sweet, but I'm not sure I'm ready for OpenTX. Mad Fisher, OpenTX isn't... you're coming from Spectrum, right? It's hard for me to remember the big differences. I've gotten so used to it. I wouldn't think it'd be that much of a jump. Okay, GY Sargent had a message held for review. I sent that on there. He's trying to talk to Matthew Smiley. Kebab's 1303s. I think those are the AMAX motors, if I'm correct. Where Bob's FPV Cycle motors, those are 1204s, 5000 kV. I believe these mint green ones here. I'll show the motor a little bit. I know it's set in focus, not like my normal video where I have a different camera and I'm down. The AMAX motors, the 1303s, I have a set of those coming. So I'll be either putting them on a build or at least trying them out. Yeah, that'll be coming eventually. I'm not able to do things fast. It takes me time. You know, I think some people might, because I've gotten this question a lot recently. I go to work every day, just like anyone else. I have a job. I'm an IT manager for a financial institution, which is, we had examiners in the office last week. It was they're leaving tomorrow, actually. So I've had the IT side of it, the examiner portions, the workbooks, and the trust but verify has gotten to be much more strenuous. So that's been taxing. Anyways, I have a job. I work all day. 3 kids, wife. My wife also works, and she is maybe even more of a professional than I am, because she does a lot of professional networking that I just don't do. Maybe it's that homebody mentality. So yeah, the time is limited. I rush home and I'll throw down a sandwich and then go out and fly. This time of year, because it's now getting dark at 5 o'clock, I don't get any evening time. So then on the weekends, I'll try to carve out some time to fly. And like this weekend, I probably won't fly much. We have family coming to town, and we're doing the family birthday party for our middle child. So that's kind of my quick story about, this isn't my job. This is my hobby. This is something fun I do. I enjoy it. I enjoy doing these live streams. It's almost midnight, so we're getting close to an hour and a half. Guys, if you're sending your email address through the chat, be careful, please. This will be posted on YouTube. I don't know what happens to that stuff. So I just noticed that, so be careful. We got some side conversations going on there. Is Mr. Shutterbug, Nate Payne in here somewhere? I didn't see him. Maybe so. UAE Futures? Or is that UAV Futures? Oh, there's Mr. Shutterbug. I missed him. Ovionic Matthew says are available on Amazon and AliExpress. I don't think I've ever ordered from AliExpress. Where is UAV Futures? I don't see. Oh, there he is. There used to be a drone called the Twig way back in 2016, 2017. Boy, I don't know. Was that a 5-incher? Because I don't remember a micro being called a Twig. Why no one ever used Venom batteries? Chad, I have tried the Venom batteries. It's been a long time, but they just didn't perform and they were expensive. I still get solicitations via email from Venom. Okay, I went too far up because I was looking to see who was all here. So Props Off is saying under 4S G and B, 4S and up tattoo. Everyone has an opinion, and that's mine. That's true. Oh, Mr. Shutterbug was answering the question about the JST connector, and it's only rated for 3 amps. Thank you. Yeah, I'm wondering what the crimping has to do with that loss too. Like just like with the rolled pins versus the solid pins, if you throw some flux and some solder in there, does that help? Is it gonna melt? 6 to 5 says Brother Hobby has a bunch of motors on sale, up to 40% off right now, and there are any sizes you'd recommend from them. The 1106 and 1507 look tempting. If they have a set, I might be mistaken. I think it was Brother Hobby that had a blue set of either 1105 or 1106 motors that I did not like. They may have changed things since then, but I could not find any way of making them run anything other than smoking hot. Some motors run warm. Some people call that warm hot. Those Brother Hobby motors at the time that I was using, both the 7100 and the 5100 kV, they were untouchable. They were so hot. So I wasn't about to fly those. And I brought it up somewhere, and a few other people confirmed that. So if those are the same motors, I would not go for those. I can't necessarily speak to the others. 1507 is a good size for 3-inch. You get lots of prop authority. You get lots of low end on a 1507. I do think you'll get slightly less flight time because your motor's bigger than a 1406. But again, if they're on sale, saving some money is always good. So it must be sometime a daytime down there in Australia. If UAV Futures has popped on by, he might be gone already. I'm kind of backlogged on the chat here. Matt Fisher's got deviation. I like deviation. So I think deviation is probably the most logically laid out of the firmwares that I've used. And deviation actually came on one of the jumper radios as well. So Mad Fisher, yeah, I like that firmware for radios. The jump to FR Sky isn't that big a deal. It's just, for quads, there's only a few spaces you need to go. And if you hear about Lewis scripts and stuff like that, you don't have to use that stuff. It's usually very, very specific. Or if you want to enhance the radio in some way, whether it's function or eye candy, like there's a Lewis script to change the display on how information is laid out that looks pretty cool. But you don't have to use that stuff. Basically, you're doing the same things you were in deviation with setting up your switches for mixers and associating a channel to them. And the binding is kind of the same. And you just go to the bind, you select the right protocol or mode in FR Sky terms, and then you hit bind. So it's not that much of a leap going from deviation to FR Sky if you rule out all the extras that FR Sky has built in, or not FR Sky, OpenTX, excuse me. YouTube won't let me post the link even partially disguised. Oh. Something is... License to Drive, I think, is trying to post that video. Add the dot to the URL. Okay, I've been scrolling up and down in the chat here trying to make sure I stay abreast of everything going on. There was somebody who was in Joshua's live stream. Was that yesterday? I was only able to be in for about 25 minutes. That had asked about an Emax motor. I think it was the 1106 4500 kV. Or no, it was 6000 kV, but it was the Emax, the 1106, the B series or 2 on a 3-inch prop. And it was running hot. The Emax motors do run warmer than other motors. Or as far as the temperature of motors in that series and how they run, Emax is on the higher end, but still close to the middle. So it's still part of the bell curve, if you wanted to use that analogy. But it sounded to me like it might be the type of 3-inch prop that you're using. I didn't catch that, so I don't know. Or the weight of the quad. You know, in micros, if you start getting pretty heavy set on your weight and then you add a battery, got to make the motor work harder to get those props spinning to create enough lift to get it up off the ground. So, yeah, that can really be taxing. Props off, says 1 a.m. here, Nick. I have to get the kids up for school and all, man. One heck of a guy with the best channel. No offense, Cal. Have a great one, and I'll be watching. All right, take care, Props off. Thanks for coming by. I know it's late. I am a weird night owl. Oh, there's some discussion going on with Tim Castro and UAV Futures about Bruce Simpson. I think Bruce likes most people but the drone regulators, right? Or the people who are attempting to regulate drones. I think. XJet, yeah, his other channel. Okay, I'm scrolling back down. Sorry, guys, I get quiet there. Dead air in Radio Talk, right? Chad Peterson used to have Adam Baum on YouTube with a live stream. He built my Tomo Quad Sonic GT 2-inch, and it was amazing. Yeah, Adam does a lot of amazing builds. He builds all the time. If you follow him on Instagram or Facebook, Adam Baum Build and Repair Services, you'll find that he's building every day. I'll throw this out at you. I have a video about helping an FPV brother out. I should find it and then post it in the chat. Or I'll just I'll pull it up here eventually. And Adam stays home to take care of his daughter, which, you know, I have a soft spot for that. I have 2 daughters, 1 son, and she has a medical condition that requires someone to give care. And so he stays home. He quit his job, stays home, and they recently experienced a hospital stay, and that can be outrageous. Where is that at? Oh, here it is. So I'm going to annoy everybody by posting this in the chat here. Just a second, if I can get it to. There's a GoFundMe for Adam, and I think it's still live. Let me check to make sure that's still live before I go posting in the chat. We were really close to meeting that pretty modest goal of $2,500. So it's currently at $1,980. So this if you were thinking about doing a super chat tonight, do it over here, please, instead. Rack Tour 96 says Bruce likes nobody. Oh, surely that's not true. Are you talking about these lipos? Grizdismation? Props off is signing off. Pound, thumbs up. Reminds me of those, who is it? The Dude Perfect guys. They have that ending. And we got some more emailing going on between people. That's fine, guys. I just want you to be careful about sharing that sort of information, because this is going to be uploaded into YouTube, and, you know, spam bots get a hold of every email they can find. Of course, at this point in time, we've been around spam for so long that maybe we're all kind of blind to it. Not blind in the fact that we don't identify it when we see it, but blind to it as there's nothing that can stop it anyways. At some point, there's nothing that can stop it. Did you guys have any questions you wanted me to go over about? We already talked about the nameless RC's, I forget the name. It's like NH something. I didn't pull up the page. It's their HD version. If you missed it, their frame that they have for that quad is very, very stiff. It seems as though the quality of their carbon has changed quite a bit. I'm not crazy about the size of the USB hole. I still think it needs to be bigger because it does come right down to the edge, and if you get any shifting around here, then you can possibly damage that USB connection. And the slots for your battery straps are a little bit thin. If you have some diamond fiber files, you can file that out. Of course, you've got to be careful about getting carbon fiber in your breathing that in, but these are files that I use for filing carbon fiber. I usually either do it outside under the watering hose if it's warm out, or I'll do it in the sink with water running as well. Usually wrap a t-shirt or something around my face. Don't want to accelerate the process of leaving the earth. Talking about some STEM stuff and teaching kids drone stuff. Sorry. What's up, Nick? Harvey Christian just got here. Yeah, we're running close to midnight, guys. It seems like maybe the chat has slowed down a touch, except for you guys that might be middle of the day, maybe. Do I have 65 asked, do I have any builds planned yet with the Beta FPV 20 amp on board? Thinking maybe the Racer X Mutant 4 when it comes out. Yeah, that board, essentially it makes 20 by 20 flight stacks kind of, I mean, if you're okay with the risk of having your ESC and flight controller all on one board, then why would you use anything else unless you knew you were going to need more ESC overhead for pushing bigger props and bigger motors or higher cell counts, maybe. And it's only a matter of time before we see another board come out with 35 amp. So yeah, I don't think it saves a lot of weight, but it saves a couple grams, probably maybe 2-3 grams. And you also, it simplifies the build. It allows you to have a lot more flexibility in where your components are, and making a smaller center body, of course, as well. So I can really see how that's where micros are going to go. Even though Diatone used their 16 by 16 stack on their Cube series, they've got another one coming where they're using their Whoop based board. Digi FPV and the places of analog. Oh, digital FPV. Because I'm microcentric, it's going to have to get smaller. Especially when it comes to things like this. You know, these are a lot of fun. And how are we going to get digital onto this? I mean, this VTX and camera all-in-one weighs 3.5 grams. And there are people that only fly these. There are, the Tiny Whoop group, I think, is the biggest group on Facebook with like 30,000+ members. As far as, not the biggest group of all Facebook groups, but the biggest of the drone or quad-based groups. The Tiny Whoop group is the biggest. So that's a big concern for me, is that, yeah, if you want digital FPV, you can get it. You can do it with a 3-incher and whatever it fits in, essentially. But, oh, I just lost a light. So we're going a little bit darker here. We were talking about digital and, so yeah, but you're still going to have your analog. So your expense for this hobby is going to go up, which that's going to be a struggle for some, I would think, if not everyone. I don't have a digital, I don't have the DJI system, and I don't really even plan to get it. Oh, Matthew Smiley says it's 11:56, so you must be on the same time. Ishi Novice 1 and 2, Andy RC didn't like it, it sounds like. Oh, he didn't. What was the issue with the, I guess I shouldn't be asking, that's going to color how I see it. Now, the 2 is on the way as well. I don't know if I'm going to have the 1, the Ishi Novice 1. It should have arrived, I would have thought, a week or two ago, but I haven't seen it, so that could have gotten lost or stolen or squashed or whatever. But the 2 is shipped as well, so we'll see what that comes, when that comes. I think as far as thoughts, Short Circuit, on that sort of package, if I were to recommend it, I would probably go with the Emax Tiny Hawk. I don't know, do they, for the Tiny Hawk S, no, it's the Freestyle. No, it was the Tiny Hawk. The Tiny Hawk had that RTF kit with the goggles and the radio and everything, right? I think it did. I don't know if they have that same version for the Tiny Hawk S, which is 2S, 1S, or the Freestyle, but I think you can use that radio and bind it to those other quads. So I would probably go for starters, if that's what we're talking about, for starters, that direction. I know that costs more, and budget can kind of rule things. I'm always worried about somebody getting started on a budget and then having a poor experience. Like when I started on a budget. I had the Hobby King Quantum goggles, the foam box goggles with the big screen in it. That was basically the screen you'd have in a car for a backup camera. And that was terrible, but I loved it. You know, that's what we had. But now, you know, if someone gets started with something that maybe doesn't fly great, or it doesn't have a good goggle or radio with it, and they see what everybody else is doing, but they don't understand that there's a huge price difference between what they've purchased and what somebody else has got, then that could sour them. That's one of my concerns. Who did I look up to as I got into FPV? Ooh, that's a good question, Omar. I would have to say I'll hedge a little bit. I can't think of anyone that I looked up to at the time. I think I was watching a lot of videos that you guys were watching back in 2015 and 2016. Trying to think. There was a guy doing quad reviews, non-FPV, Flying Ryan. I remember him. I won't say I looked up to him as an individual pilot or anything. I just remember watching him. Of course, I've watched Bruce for years. I still watch his rants on XJet, which he has a lot of good information on XJet too. I shouldn't just laugh. But who else? A lot of the people that we think of as kind of some of the original pilots, Charpoo, Metal Danny, Mr. Steele, Chad Nowak. Who else was some of those guys during that time? Zoe, FPV, I watched her for a long time. Schizo. And what's his, the guy from Germany, I can't remember his name. We haven't seen him in a while, but he was, I think, part of that group back in 2015, 2016 as well. I could be wrong about him. License to Drive says his Quadcopter 101. Yeah, I've seen. Is he still doing videos? Drone Day says the Tiny Hawk has a nice camera too. That really varies. Opinions are kind of all over the map as far as these little CMOS all-in-one cameras. Some people watch them and they think it looks really good, and other people can't stand them. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that there is a strong line in the sand between those that like and those that don't like. And there's a lot of that in this hobby, is having strong opinions one way or another. Mad Fisher asks, do any of the split HD cameras have good FPV feed? Or should I just go with the dual cam type for HD recording? I mainly fly freestyle in and around trees. As far as a good FPV from a single camera, no. None of them are good. They've gotten marginally better from where they started. The Tarsier, or Tarsier, I'm not certain how you say it. That's probably, cover my face up, get it to focus. That's probably your best FPV camera, but the HD footage, it's not GoPro quality. There's just, GoPro's business is based upon quality footage. So if you're looking for that, there's no substitute, but you can get good, high-quality video from a camera like that. Short circuits, I agree. I wanted a cheap basher because it rains more here in Astoria, Oregon, than anywhere on Earth. Does it really? Ladrib, I've watched a lot of Ladrib. Ladrib's flight style is so much different than what I like to watch, so I don't watch avidly. I don't watch much really now. It usually is, I'm in a waiting room, or I'm waiting for something to happen, a kid to come out of someplace to pick them up, and then I'll pop open YouTube maybe and see. I have this game called Bricks and Balls that I've been playing. Does anyone play Bricks and Balls? Let me ask you guys a question. I have an iPhone, but I suspect Bricks and Balls is available all over the place. I'm on level 468, maybe 69. Been stuck there for a week or two. Batteries not included. FPV talks about Zorro. Yeah, I've seen a few of his videos. For whatever reason, his aren't popping up. I must not be subscribed, so I haven't seen him. Oh, Flying Ryan, License Drive said Flying Ryan reviewed so many toy quads and then just stopped one day. That's something I should mention. You know, I got my start with... sorry, I just got a message from Bot Grinder. I got my start with the SEMA X5C. That was, I guess, my backstory, or if I use a Michael Rollins term, if you're not familiar with him, he's been doing interviews of people. My origin story would be that, so this space, we've been in this house 13 years, I think. And so I would, basically what I'm doing with you now, I would be doing, before I did FPV or quads, I would be working. I would come back to my desk, I'd remote into my systems, and I'd be managing those systems because I was managing the department as well. I was not just the sys admin, but I was the network admin. I was the security guy. I was many hats. I had a staff of 12 that went from 12 to 2 over the course of about 5 years. So still finding a way to get the work done without a budget and everything. So anyways, I decided I couldn't do that anymore. It wasn't healthy. I needed to have a life outside of work. Got a SEMA X5C. I think I saw an ad somewhere for the SEMA X5C, and I think this was 2016. It might have been 2015, maybe late. And I started flying that around the front. Benedict Hack from Micro Motor Warehouse. He's another guy I watched a lot. So anyways, I was flying that out in the front, line of sight, and I bought 2 of them, and I painted the front part of one of them because I really wish that light would still come back on. I painted the front of one of them so I could tell the orientation, and then it kind of progressed there. Like I stuck a camera in one of them, and that camera cooked itself, but I got a glimpse as to what it, you know, what the possibilities were there, and I just kept buying stuff and trying stuff, and I started making videos. And the videos, I think at first were probably like a lot of YouTube channels where you recorded something and you posted it there, not thinking anyone would ever see it. Maybe you attempted to give it some sort of presentation, but it didn't actually hold. Stuff like that. And then I just kept buying stuff and posting. Back then, one of the struggles was the information was kind of all over the place. That you could find so much information, but it was not quite what you were looking for. And so I added to that muddy mess by having my own information out there. One of my first struggles was binding the SciSky or SciSky boards. You remember those? The brushed boards, all-in-one boards with a receiver built into them. Project Blue Falcon, yeah, rest in peace. He was another good one. But that SciSky board, I think it took me like 8 or 10 hours just to bind it to my radio. So that's a little bit of my origin story. Okay, Grizz Dismation says that Quadcopter 101 is still doing videos. He's a cool dude. Johnny DRC talks about starting with Spectrum. Me 66 Quad Mover. Oh, that guy's amazing. Has he been posting recently? I've kind of fallen out of the watching space a little bit just because of time. But his line of sight stuff, and Seth FPV, RC Addict, he does reviews too. His line of sight skills are pretty amazing as well. Doug Broke It FPV asked, do you like the Pico patch? I can't say. I haven't used it, I don't believe. I don't really use a patch anymore. I use 2 axes. I do fly pretty close in, whether it's in the house or in the backyard. So getting that penetration far away is not something that I necessarily need. So yeah, if you're needing a patch, you're needing it because you probably have a specific area you fly in that's problematic, so you need a more dense ability to grab that signal. Dan Christie appreciates the backstory. Sure, yeah. Good morning from New York. I Fly FPV says. I think I missed some stuff again. Quad Mover. The lighting's good. It's dramatic lighting. Yeah, I have a little light above the camera. It gave up the ghost. It doesn't have a meter on it, so I can't tell. I had it charging beforehand. It doesn't show you if it's charging or if it's done charging. It's cheap. Again, I bought on a budget. Does anyone know what antennas are on the Eachine EV800Ds? Left hand or right hand? I believe they're right hand. Drone Days, your comments, looks like YouTube is slurping them off for the cursing. Just so you know, you were, well, now I can't see it anymore. So if you take out the 4-letter or the colorful language, then you'll probably find your messages go right through. The RC Addict is an alien, MC Creation says. Yeah, he's really good. I'm not sure. Dan Christie, Nick, that EAS? Not sure. Don't understand. Chad Peterson, Nick, you're the best indoor backyard ripper I've seen. As I left in one of the Facebook comments about the video that I posted of the Beta 85 Pro 2, home field advantage in full effect. I practice a lot in this space. And that brings me to something. I should wrap up. It's after midnight. I don't want to cut you guys off, and I'm all energized from probably your energy. But I once in a while I get questions about going other places, and I've kind of talked about that with the family on how it's just not viable. And I understand that desire to watch flight footage that comes from different locations. Quite honestly, outside of the time, I don't know if I would have gotten in as deep into FPV or this hobby if it wasn't so viable to fly in my home and in my backyard. Because packing up and traveling, even when I have had time and I've attempted to do it once or twice over the last couple of years, I really don't desire it. Maybe it's because I'm so spoiled with the backyard and the house. I don't know. So it's probably not going to happen unless it happens by chance. I've taken quads on trips and then not really found an appropriate time to separate from the family to go do any flying. So that's always problematic, managing those things. I flew in a hotel. Where were we at? I think we were in Dallas. I flew in a hotel, and we had connecting rooms with the kids just flying back and forth. It was so boring I never bothered to post it, and that was, I don't know, a year or so ago. Oh, somebody, where'd that go? Jeez, Pete, this chat is crazy to manage. It is just not smooth at all. Somebody got started with the Hubsan. Yeah, the Hubsan actually had some really good props that we used in the brush era for a long time. They were the clear plastic ones. They were like the best balanced micro props for brush that you could get for a time. Papa Doc FPV, hello. Just got here. We're kind of wrapping up, I think. It's getting fairly late. In Drone Productions from Sweden. Early morning there. Keep up the good work. I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, here we go. Feiskin. My start with the micro was the Hubsan 4X with all-in-one camera glued on top from Hobby Zone. Hobby King, maybe? I think they had like a VA 1000 or 1100 that was one of the original all-in-one cameras like it was on the Mode 2 Splinter. But it was a lot bigger and heavier then, of course. I think that might be what you're referencing, or something very, very similar, I suspect. Short Circuit's got his start with the Bugs 2W. Not familiar with that one. Drone Days. No worry to apologize, you know. I just wanted to let you know. I know that language can be used in all sorts of different ways. So I don't offend easy, but I do try to keep it clean here. I didn't set anything up to filter out colorful language. YouTube just did that, and then it alerted me here in the chat as I was going through it. MRod77S. I'm not certain I'm saying that right, but first quad was an XGB 145, still flying today. Yeah, it's a good one. Good performance, good efficiency, nice smooth motors, 3-incher. Chad Peterson says, I don't like how clean your home is. When you're flying indoors, need to throw some junk on the floor next time. Um, Not with my wife. The junk has to stay back here, and this is like the farthest away. She won't come down there. There's a floor drain right over here, which is gross. It's got the muck that, you know, from the air vents that kind of gets stuck, and then it gets washed down through the condensation that builds up in that equipment, that it comes out the hose. So that floor drain has got like a muckiness around it. She won't cross that threshold. She won't come over here to watch something on the computer. It's she likes to have it clean, and I contribute to help keeping it clean, mainly by telling the kids to pick up. Excuse me, Drone Days says he can't fly line of sight very well. Me neither. I've kind of lost those skills. I love FPV. I do line of sight hovers for testing purposes of new quads, and maybe bump the throttle a little bit, but really, I don't really fly around at all as far as line of sight goes. Sounded like he said the wedding is good. Don't know what Matthew's referencing there. Maybe I slip a tongue on this guy's part. Will I see a big difference between right and left hand antennas? Not if you're using a whip or dipole on your VTX, but if you're using a circular polarized on your transmission side, your send side, then you'll see a big difference if you've got the wrong polarization on the receiving antenna. So that's where you'll see the big difference. Excuse me. Field of Drones, talking about the XGB 145, and it's awesome. The vases. Are you talking about the lamps drone days? Where I used to have the lamps used to be a lot closer together on that coffee table behind the couch. I'm kind of forgetting because I kept moving them together, and then the kids kept moving them apart because they could sit at the kitchen table and then see the TV clearly. So I kind of stopped moving them back together because they kept being every day they would get pushed back apart. Well, I'm not sure what MC Creations is referring to. Oh, come on, man, you're a hell of a pilot. I can't remember what I said, but maybe it has to do with flying between those. I did a few times, but it kind of got to be one of those old man things or just a guy thing, or just a me thing, that I got tired of moving them apart so I could fly through them, or putting them, where I wanted them so I could fly through them when the kids weren't home, like during a school day. And then they would move them back apart, like that evening or the next morning. And so we're doing this battle almost. Okay. Matthew SGS, how it feels to win a giveaway. Potensic 85, D85 and Bebop Power were his first, and moved to actual quads. Okay, Matthew Smiley's headed out. Thank you, Matthew. GS says it feels awesome. He's really excited. I got an email today. I think it was today, from Peregrine Flow. If you're in the chat somewhere, Peregrine, thank you for the kind email. I had sent him a camera so he could get up and going. I think he had, if I remember correctly, he had some difficulties with the product that he'd received, or maybe he'd crashed and broke one, and I had several, so I sent one. I send stuff to people quite a bit outside of the channel. Doug Broke It FPV just asking, have the neighbors complained yet of the noise, or do they think I'm watching them? I showed all mine what it was all about, and they don't care. We do have new neighbors to the east of the house, and their little girls come over all the time, and I fly, and no one's ever really bothered me, and I've always offered to show people. You may have seen a video. I did a camera test where Gary, one of my neighbors, he actually could hear the quad out in front of their house, and so he pulled out real carefully out of his driveway, and I'd seen and heard him through the camera. And then as he was pulling up the street, I was kind of coming around him so we could get that side view through kind of his doorway, and he was waving. And for the most part, they're all cool. Could they be secretly annoyed? that's always possible. Some people suffer in silence, but if I don't tend to fly when they're outside. Like if my neighbors in the back are outside gardening, or if they're out barbecuing or something, I don't fly then. I don't want to disturb them. License to Drive says after 4 years of flying, he's lost 0 quads, found them all. That's awesome. 65 has broken a share, but not lost one. Dan Richmond lost a 2-inch when the video went out. Never found it. Matthew Barella, yeah, you do, buddy. Very generous to those who have need. Affords us to pay it forward. I think you're referring to me sending stuff to people. Yeah. I grew up broke. For whatever reason, I was always motivated to work and to have money, but never a desire to have a lot of money. Now, you probably look at the house and think that doesn't fit. But so our home we bought for almost $70,000 under retail value. That's how we've bought homes. That's how I've bought homes. I have not only my day job, but I have 2 other sources of revenue, income, that I don't actually actively participate in anymore. I participate in kind of an annual basis. This is not YouTube. I'm not talking about YouTube. YouTube doesn't make any money. Affiliates money just goes right back out to vendors. So even though I'm compensated well for the work that I do and have been for a lot of years, having that money, and my wife is also compensated very well for the work that she does, I've never really cared. I'd rather do something with money or stuff that you have for someone else than to keep it for trophy reasons. I don't know. I'm more likely to keep one of the kids' drawings from when they were in grade school than I am to keep a quad or extra money. I'm much more likely to buy a burrito and hand it to somebody who's looks hungry, who's sitting around outside. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because I was broke and something impacted my way of thinking back when I was growing up as a kid. I don't know. Papa Doc flew line of sight for years. Wings. Yeah, in planes and stuff. Yeah. Matthew Burrell says he also grew up broke. Gives perfect perspective. I think the thing that one of the stories I tell a lot about growing up broke, and when I say broke, we were never homeless. I don't recall being hungry or starving or scared, anything like that. We just had we'd had one car when we had a working car. We got free lunches at school. Couldn't stand it. We had this special lunch ticket. This is back in the 80s and 70s. You had this special lunch ticket that was a different color than all the other kids. So that was something that impacted me. I was always trying to make my stay at the back of the line and hoping that the next class, when they came to the cafeteria, that I had already handed the lady my card and she had punched it before that next class had got there. That was my daily stress as a little guy. And then in the summers, we ate at a soup kitchen, and I didn't eat at the soup kitchen because the people inside made me afraid. That was, I guess, when I say I wasn't afraid, that was a time I was afraid. My sister went in. She's 5 years older than I am. She went in. She doesn't even remember going to the soup kitchen. But I didn't eat those summers, at least not lunch, because I was scared of the people. And we always had to work. You had to collect Coke bottles or aluminum cans and make a little bit of money here and there so you could buy things like candy. I remember I was telling my kids the other day about how baseballs, because I played baseball through college, baseballs used to be expensive, and I always wanted to buy a good baseball. I always had the baseballs I referred to as grocery store baseballs. They were those vinyl covers. They were a little bit soft. They didn't have good thick seams you could really grip on them. And I always wanted a good baseball, and I could never afford those. And then I saved up my money, and I think a good baseball was like $9. They're a lot cheaper than that now, unless you get like MLB rated balls. But I'd saved up, and then I hit it into a treat area, and I spent like an entire afternoon looking for that ball, and never found it. Broke my heart. Lots of guys talking about losing drones or finding drones. MC Creations is the same here, and I'm still broken. Oh no! GS says I'm an awesome human. You know, I try to be a contributing member of whatever society I'm in, whether it's local or larger. But I think I'm also, I think I can also be quite harsh because I can see something and it won't make sense to me, and I'll want to say something, and that's when I have to bite my tongue and saying, "Why are you doing that? I can't understand that." Go to the grocery store. Situational awareness is grocery stores are one of the worst places for situational awareness. You've got, you can reach arm to arm for on the grocery aisles just about, and there's only room for carts to go side to side, so they've got traffic built right in. But invariably, every aisle has somebody sitting in the middle, and they're just gazing at the beans. Why are you looking at the beans? You know why you were looking at the beans? You needed a particular bean. Get the bean and get out of here. Anyways, so as far as being an awesome human, yeah, I think I fail in a lot of ways. Somebody asked a question. I saw my name highlighted. Angel, Adrian, FPV. What do you think about the HTRC T240 Duo? I don't know what that is, Angel. HTC T240 Duo. HGLRC? I'm at a loss. I'm sorry, I can't answer the question. I don't know what that is. Papa Doc, I bought 3 sets of goggles, kept upgrading, but things don't get bigger. Matthew, when we had a working car. Yeah, yeah, it just, when your car broke back then, you had to save up the money, which meant you had to go to work. At least my parents had to go to work in order to save up the money, in order to have the money to buy the part they needed to fix the car. And then you would have to find a buddy or a friend that knew how. Like, we didn't have friends that owned a mechanic shop. They might have been a mechanic there, or at least my parents had friends. So then you had to kind of come together as friends or as a smaller group of people to get this friend back in operation. And it might take a month because, living hand to mouth, you don't have much extra money, especially when you're bumming rides off of friends to get to work. Matthew also got free lunch. Having cardboard in your shoes. That must be a Wisconsin thing, man, because I don't remember having cardboard in my shoes. I remember having holes in my shoes and wet feet. We didn't use plastic bags. We did use garbage bags for sleds, though. You put the garbage bag on over your head and poke your arms through, and then you dove down the hill, because we didn't have sleds. Drone days, I hated free lunch. Yeah. My kids, I try to remind my kids of all those things that we're always just a sliver away from it. If I were to lose my job and my wife were to lose her job, all of a sudden something bad happens overnight. We'd be okay in the short run, but we've got to find a new job right away. When I say short run, I don't know, X number of months, whatever that is. And so if something bad like that were to happen, maybe one of us gets injured and can't work anymore. That happens to people all the time. It's a very thin line between everything's fine and everything's not so fine, or worse. License to drive being on disability living allowance means having to save for quad stuff. I bet. I work in the public. I talk to 400 people a day, and most are 100% selfish, but not all. Yeah, I do think... I think technology, the arena I work in, is really at fault for... I'm going to blame it. You guys might not agree. For giving us that ability to get what we want so instantly through our mobile phones and the technology that that we get so consumed with what we want, whether it's from someone else or from some other community or something, that it is our own desire, that we forget about the world outside. And so when we go places and we sit somewhere and we're waiting, especially when I'm with the kids, I'll encourage them to put down their phones and just look at the people. Look at people who are talking amongst one another and who aren't talking about amongst another. We're not making judgments about them, but look at the world. See what the world is doing, the real world. The real world. I remember one of my struggles in my early days, my alternator went out. And I had one buddy that had done one alternator before, and it took us all day to do the alternator in my car. I could afford to buy the alternator from the part shop, but I couldn't afford to take it to a shop to get it replaced. And I wasn't certain it was the alternator because I had a mechanic tell me it was the alternator, and then we had to push it off his lot. I think I had to push it off his lot. That's a multi-purpose, Nick, because that's cheap rain jacket also never did the sled thing. We actually put the garbage bags over us and would get a rope and behind a car. This was when I was in college, though. And you would go up and down the roads like that. Ridiculous, crazy, probably fairly dangerous as well. But, yeah. Angel Adrian FPV asks, are you going to review the HDO anytime soon? The short answer is no, I don't have one. I'm not that sort of person that has access to that product that early. So I would like to try them out. I have to look at where I can get some money from and then shift it into the HDO 2 way. My suspicion is I still probably wouldn't use it on the channel because I think the Sky Zone DVR is really, really good. It's consistent, and that makes me syncing up flight footage to the stationary camera footage a lot easier, and that's important. That really makes, that'll take a 2 or 3 hour edit and chop off maybe 20 to 30 minutes on just that consistent DVR factor, and the power play didn't necessarily give me that. Doug broke it. You also have the Sky Zone 030s, apparently. Johnny DRC, I'm not laughing at you, buddy, but he's been on SSDI since 1988, and he makes less than panhandlers. So you're saying that Bot Grinder makes more than you, Johnny D? You look tired? I look tired? Is it because the light's off? I might be tired. Running on fumes, maybe, you're telling me? Short Circuit had to talk about making my own fun. No phones when I was a kid. Yeah, I tell my kids about a tree we had at one of our rental houses that when I was like 7 or 8, I can't remember what age, I rode that tree like a horse. So it had 2 branches I could put my feet on, and it had another branch kind of like a broom between your legs, and I would just bounce up and down on that. Mom tells stories about me spending all sorts of time out on this tree, riding it like a horse, and some scenario I was playing out in my head, and I would verbalize. Papa Doc grew up poor, like some of us, many of us probably. Used an old car bond. Oh, for sledding? Doug broke it. When I was in college, we went out to a farm, and they had an old like 54 Ford hood that had that nice curve on it. It was actually kind of tall, and we tied a rope behind and pulled it behind an ATV, and I think 3 or 4 of us could get on that hood and grab a hold of it. Now, something that we didn't think about again was the safety factor. No helmets, and then they had these manure piles, and so the ATV would kind of get around the manure pile to where it would pull the Ford hood with all of us sledding on it up over, and they would get it on the upside and then goose the ATV so it would whip you off over the top. We're really lucky none of us came down and whacked our mouths or face on the edge of that hood. But yeah, I've done that. Makes for a great sled. Probably extra dangerous too. I have no use for the DJI system. I fly micro onlys. Yeah. Sterling Youngman, Sky Zone 030s for the win. I like them too. I think they're really good. Chris Sullivan stopping by. Chris Sullivan's got his own channel. You can click his name to check out his channel too. Right, Chris? I'm not crazy. It's pretty late. 12:30. So Doug's confirming a car hood. I can't remember whose farm it was or who I was with, but it's very vivid in my mind that we just had a great time doing that, sledding over manure piles. I did grow up in rural America. We did not have a farm, but safety factor 34 years ago, no such thing. Yeah, it was survival of the fittest. What's that called? There's a theory on it that back then, if you weren't tough enough to survive, that you died off. Or if you weren't smart enough to survive, whatever you want to say. Cops and Robbers, Cowboys and Indians. Yeah, I played all that stuff. Actually, I made a gun that became the neighborhood favorite gun. I took some wood, some electrical tape, and some radio car parts and kind of put something together. I remember my triggers were screws that we just screwed into the wood. And I had a piece of conduit for a scope that had 2 long screws that you could double as a carrying handle, like a military machine gun. I'm not that familiar with guns. Safety factor, duck. Yeah, Darwin Award, maybe that's it. That doesn't ring a bell, but it could be. I did see the thumbnail for FPV Club mentioned Andy RC put the DJI on a 3-inch. Didn't he fly that inside too? Wasn't that already an HD quad though? It just had analog FPV. My Diamond, Dan Richmond says, my Diamond VTX DVR drops frames when it sees certain branch patterns. So it's dropping a lot of frames. Oh, bedliner behind pickup in the cow fields. Yeah, but who would let you have their bedliner? I mean, our trucks didn't even have bedliner short circuits. I don't think that, I might be a little bit older than you think. Drone Days mentioned the car hoods. We were just talking about that. Chad's talking about being pulled by a snowmobile. Now, that's money, Chad. You got to remember, we're talking about the poor days where we had maybe one working car in the family. We sure didn't have a snowmobile. I don't know that I've ridden a snowmobile in the last 20 years either. Oh, he's talking about riding the snowmobile at 80 miles an hour. I think at 80 miles an hour without helmets. Oh, I'll share a story real quick. I should really wrap up, guys. I always go longer than I think I'm going to. Someone made a comment that maybe I looked a little bit tired. I do have work in the morning. I'll tell you one last story. And I hinted to it either in a video or something, but so I kind of stopped riding motorcycles, ATVs. They used to have 3-wheelers back in the day. When I was 13 years old, I had a go-kart accident. I think I mentioned this go-kart accident. I had saved up, aluminum can money, various money that I could scrape together for a couple of years and bought this $200 go-kart. And it was the old style of go-kart, so it was like a motorcycle. So your throttle was on the steering column. Well, not the steering column. You had a T steering, and then you had brakes. And they were not disc brakes or anything funny. It had this 35 horsepower pull start motor. There was no cage on this thing whatsoever except for over the engine. The engine was protected, but not the human. So we kept this down at my dad's shop, the shop that he worked for. They allowed him to keep it down there because real close was a motorcycle shop. So they had a track back there that I could ride the go-kart around. So it was real safe. And when he was down there prepping for the next day of work and changing it, he was an electrician. So when he was changing out parts or getting stuff ready for the job the next day, I'd go down there with him and I would ride the go-kart. Anyways, so when I was 13, we had a bunch of snowstorms come through. We were stuck at home. This is at a time where we're financially doing a little bit better. We had a home now. We weren't renting anymore. They were in the purchase. We had two cars, and I had a go-kart, so we couldn't have been that bad off, right? But we struggled to get the go-kart started because, it's pull start. You're pulling. And I had a friend over, and we had the go-kart at the house because we'd had all these snowstorms. And so we had Christmas break and we had like school closings, and people were getting to work on snowmobiles. Like if somebody had a truck that could get through the snow, they would go around and pick up other people so that, people could get to work still. Emergency services were barely working. Anyways, so we have the go-kart, we get it back to the house, and a day or two goes by and we try to get started. We struggle. I finally get it started, and it starts up, and I know I've got to get in it, and I've got to get going to get that engine. It's not healthy for the engine, I know, to, the oil's cold and it's not all, lubricated the motor, but I jump in it and start ripping up the neighborhood right away. Thankfully, I come back after making a couple passes, and I'm fairly confident the motor's going to stay running, and I grab my helmet. Very next pass, I'm going along the sidewalk, and I'm kicking up snow. My friend is sitting in a snowbank in our front yard, and I'm going to try to get him with the snow from the go-kart wheels. So I go by him, and then I go and I turn the steering wheel because there's a truck in front of me, and it's parked. And so I'm just going to drive around the truck. Wheels turn, go-kart goes straight, goes right underneath the back of the pickup. Bumper hits me right in the chest. It didn't have a clutch on it, so it had an automatic idle. It was always pushing forward. At this point, this is all secondhand information. I have certain recollections, but it's not very clear. And I'm kind of ignoring the chat for a minute, so I'm sorry if you've asked a question and I've missed it. I'll try to cover anything it was specifically for me before we wrap up. So my friend jumps up out of the snowbank. He pulls on the engine cage to help pull it back away from the truck. As I'm told, I stood up and fell straight over like a tree, like my feet were tied together. My friend picked me up. My sister come running out of the house. They drug me up on the porch, and I had all sorts of internal injuries. Thankfully, I had the helmet on. The helmet had it wasn't like it was cracked or anything, but the helmet had this big white mark from it was a Dodge pickup. It was a blue Dodge pickup. The lettering on the tailgate, my head had smacked into that, or the helmet had smacked into that, and I had a bunch of white paint on it. So I spent about a month in the hospital, missed kind of a half a year of school because it took me a while before I had the energy to go back to school, and I was going back half days. My injuries, my spleen was bleeding. They were very concerned about that. I had a contused lung and a bruised lung, and then the other lung had another injury, but their primary concern was that it was full of liquid or filling with liquid, so they had to take care of that. I had, all sorts of internal organ bruising, so I was kind of incapacitated. So for about 3 weeks in the hospital, then I had about another week to 10 days in the hospital recovery before they sent me home, and then it was probably another 2 months before I went back to school in any capacity. But so that was the end of my motorcycle ATV days. I never got a wild hair for those, and probably will give me a lot of stress the first time one of my kids wants to go ride one of those. Oh, it wasn't that bad, MC. I was young. I lived through it, and here I am. I can barely remember it. Oh, here, last bit. I'm gonna wrap up, and we're gonna end it for tonight. We're pushing now towards 1 a.m. I had a social studies teacher, Mr. Brown, that when I got back to school, he Doug broke it. Thank you for the $2 or the I don't know what it says. I don't know what monetary unit that is, but Mr. Brown, the social studies teacher, when I got back to school, he started calling me Crash. So that was my nickname for a few years, was Crash. There was all sorts of rumors about how I had died and they had removed organs, and just all sorts of crazy kid stuff that when somebody disappears for a while and they're it's confirmed they're in the hospital, the mind runs crazy. But I remember the first time some of my classmates visited me at the house. There was like 5 or maybe 8. It's hard to say. They sat at the opposite side of the room in a chair, all of them. Apparently I did not look well, so they didn't want to get near me at all. Apparently I looked like death. Chris Sullivan Crash, that's my FPV name. Yeah, take it. Do it. Yeah, I'm glad I'm still around too. Doug broke it. You're dead. Wow. Yeah. Oh, MC had a brain tumor. That's wasn't cancer, thankfully. 75% of field of view loss. Man, that's tough. Yeah, when you're in a small town, like our town barely had 5,000 people in it. Everybody knows everybody else's business. At least everybody thinks they know. And then they add what they don't know. But they want to sound like they don't know. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap up. I really enjoyed everybody coming by. I don't think I saw how many people were actually in the live stream. But at one point in time, somebody said there was 87. That's awesome. I know it's a difficult time for many here in the U.S., at least Central Time and Eastern Time zones, and anybody else that follows through with that. But I appreciate everybody coming by, and I do like to do these things, even though it might set me back for an edit or a recording of something else. I enjoy these sessions, and I do feel like they're a little bit one way. It's kind of me spilling into the camera, but I do enjoy them. So I appreciate everybody coming by. I hope to have I'll only probably have 2 videos out this week. Nothing else is, 2. Yeah, I think there's only going to be 2 other videos this week. So that's kind of my ebbs and flows. Is some weeks are slower, some weeks are faster, because you've got that buildup of stuff that you've got done or that you're working on, and then you don't have any videos on it for a week to 10 days. Excuse me, and then it all kind of comes around to where it starts getting finished up. I've got the flights in, I've got my feel for it, my kind of intentions for how I'm going to present the video, whatnot, so that those things all kind of wrap up. But good night, everybody. I appreciate y'all coming by. I hope everybody has a wonderful week. We'll see you next time.